Okay, hey guys, and welcome to another video tutorial. I'm quickly going to talk about the XYZ coordinate system. Cool. Alright, so basically what you've got is, think of a 2D graph. Alright, you've got a y-axis. Okay, let me just do this better. You've got a y-axis and you've got an x-axis. Alright, this is the center point, and you can actually move in a negative direction or positive direction. Okay, and this is just basically moving left or right in the opposite direction. All right, so I'm going to take this graph and I'm going to take this and put it into perspective now. All right, same thing. So now I'm just going to basically turn this so that I can see more of it. And what actually now happens is there's a new axis that gives us depth, and this is called the z. Okay, so I've got x, y, and z. All right, so when I use the xyz system, I know that I'm actually working in perspective, and especially 2-point perspective, because each of these axes, all right, is going to a vanishing point. Okay, and that's basically the corner of a box for 2-point perspective. Alright, so you can build on this system. Okay, so two elements that's important is, one, you've got these axes. Alright, and this axis essentially is the three basic views that you get. So I did cover this in a video at the fundamental stage. So the basic views is, if you look at a box, okay, so you've got your orthographic views, which is just flat views, 2D, no perspective, and then you've got your perspective grids, 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point. So the axis actually gives us the basic views, all right? And this is basically the top view, and the side, the front view, and the side view. Okay, this is if I look along one of these axes, all right, at the object. So let me explain. Let's say on this first one, all right, there's an x and a y. Okay, so I just showed you guys, if we tilt this, then there's a z. So I'm going to put the z on here, but what I'm essentially looking at here is, I'm actually looking along the z-axis. So I'm standing here, now I'm looking at this whole graph, all right, and I see the y up there, and I see the x here. Negative, positive, negative, positive, and negative, positive. Alright, this is just the direction. So if I look through here at this, and I'm looking on the z plane, on the z axis, alright, okay, so axis is an important thing. The only thing that I will be seeing, if I draw a rectangle, let's ignore that box. I'm going to draw a rectangle on here, alright. So now, because we're looking down the z-axis, this is called the z-plane, right? And this only makes sense if we look at this in 3D, because let's draw the same plane on here, okay? So negative y, negative x, it's in this quadrant, okay? So I'm going to put that rectangle here. Okay, so looking along the z-axis, I see the z-plane. And looking then, and that's the only thing I see, because if I moved around this side and I looked through the x-axis, okay, I won't see anything. It will only be flat, because this is just a flat plane. All right, so okay, so I said that the x-axis is also part of the three basic views. So let's just say, okay, this is the z, and I'm going to call this z-plane, this is going to be the front, right? Because it can always be the front or the back, or if you look from the top down, it can always be the top or the bottom, and if you look from the side, it can always be the left or the right. Okay, so I'm going to define this as the front. Looking through here, now I'm looking at the front. So this is the front view, which is one of the basic views, and Z. The Z-axis tells me that this is the front view. Right. The X-axis is a new shot, and at this moment, when I draw the axis again, I can't see anything because this is X, alright, and then we've got Z here, left and right, and Y is up and down, and that plane is on the Y axis. Alright, so this is the Z plane, but I can't see the Z plane from here. I can only see the Z plane, which is perpendicular to the Z axis. Alright, so if I want to add an X plane, alright, so the X plane, like the Z plane, would be perpendicular to the axis. So this would be a plane that goes back there. Alright, and now what I essentially did was I added a plane here. Okay, looking through the x-axis, there's a plane now there. Alright, will I be able to see it from the front? No, because if I look around the z plane now this plane is flat. Okay, so this plane is there. I can't see it, but I can see it here. Okay, so this is why this is basic views. The axis actually gives us the orthographic views for top, front, and side. Okay, so let's say I'm moving to the top and I'm looking down. Alright, what will I see? Well, basically, I won't see anything. Okay, because there's no y plane yet. Alright, so I will look down, and let's say my body is this side, so the front is here at the bottom. So I'm going to see, I'll see the edges, but that's about that. I won't see the depth of the planes themselves. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this again, and I'm going to create the bottom plane, which is the y plane. So now if I connect that up, this is the y plane. Okay, so Z is going to be the up and down one, because I said my body is like this now, looking down, and the X is the left and right. Okay, so here we've got a front view looking through these axes. Okay, looking through the X from this will be the side view. So the side is X, and then Y will be the top. Okay, so what do I see when I look through the specific axis? I will see the plane. Okay, so that's basically two elements. The one is the axis and the one is the plane. Alright, and how they are connected, and then basic movement. Alright, and navigation. So now if I actually, let's say I want to take this y plane, okay, so y looking down, and I want to extend. Alright, let's extend on the front plane. So I'm going to take this front plane and just duplicate this over. Right, so we're going to find center on the Z plane. Okay, so this is looking from the front. So let's do this. So this is essentially what I did. Okay, so now I'm going to find center on the Y axis. Okay, there's that, and then I'm going to cross over and duplicate into the positive X direction. So duplicate into positive X, there was the center, come through and actually come up and hit that, and I've duplicated into that direction. Alright, will I be able to see it from here? Nope, because I'm looking in the X direction, so this is happening to us, and positive X. Okay, so there's X, So positive x, because I'm actually looking from the top, I will be able to see just the side actually being created. Now if I connect that up and actually complete all the planes, then I will be able to see this from the top as well. This will be created, but it will still be just a plane, and there's the whole box also created. Alright, so the perspective view will be basically, this is the perspective camera, and these are the three basic views then. Alright, and this is everything is based on the XYZ system. Now another thing that you can do, that you can think about, is if we think about, okay, the first idea of this axis or the system is that you can see, you can keep track on which plane you are working and which side you are moving and all those things. So the first idea is movement. Okay. The second idea that I like this is to think about rotation. Alright, so let's take an axis. Let's take like the x-axis. Okay, I'm just going to create the whole system. This is the y and this will be the z. Alright. So let's think about this rotation. So if I tell you to rotate around the z-axis, alright, so now you think of moving around this thing. Okay, so first we did planes on the thing, so I'm going to do a z-plane. Alright, so this is my z-plane. Okay, because I'm looking through this axis and there's the z-plane. So if I do the view, this is actually looking through the z-axis. I will be able to see that. So now I want to start rotating, okay, or I want the ability to rotate. So I can either rotate around x, okay, in this direction, or I can rotate around y, okay, that side, or I can rotate around z. Alright. And this all depends where this pivot point is actually, alright, where I put these axis system. So now if I think of rotation, then I think of this as having the ability to I'm just going to create a new layer here and do a flat one. Now I'm going to take this idea of this axis or this XYZ system, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to position this, okay, because let's say this is the y and this is the x and this is the z, and I want to rotate around z, okay, around z, so this is going to flip around that, is I can put this point, this axis, on the corner or in the middle, and you can see how the rotation will differ. Alright, so if I put it in the middle and I rotate this will actually just let me just see if I can. So this is basically what's going to happen. Okay, you're going to rotate this around the z-axis. Alright, if I was able to do this here, then I had to move this pivot to the middle, and then it will just spin around that axis the whole time. But if I actually move this to the point here, alright, and I try to I'm going to pivot this again. Oops. Alright, I'm just going to move this pivot so that I can see. And I pivoted around the z-axis because I shifted the pivot. This is the type of effect that I'm going to get. Alright. So the same, so that thing is going to, if the pivot point is there, which has my XYZ axis on there, it's going to pivot around that way. Okay. So think of this XYZ system also as a way to place a pivot. So I'm going to center this pivot. Okay, so there's the pivot. And then I will have, in this one of these flat view, I would either have a X or a Y, or perhaps a Z and a Y. But now I must remember I can either rotate around the Z, okay, and if I don't want to do that and I want to rotate around the X, this is going to flip this side. Alright. So this is just a way to think about it. So the first one was a lot about this movement, moving up and down and in this direction, but we're actually moving around in 3D space. Okay, this is just the orthographic view, looking direct. If there was a camera placed here and a camera placed there and there, this is what I would be seeing. Alright, and then all these pivot points and things. Alright, hope this was helpful to you guys. It's a bit, it can be confusing, but if you just think about this for a while, or if you just try to understand this, this is actually real powerful stuff as well. Okay, so I think the main thing to remember is that when you use the XYZ axis, you're actually working with a perspective. Okay, because suddenly there's depth. So there's a horizon line, and let's say I'm going to do the first corner of my box. Alright, so this goes to a left vanishing point, that goes to a right vanishing point, and this goes to another vanishing point, or just this is a vertical. So this is the Y and the X and the Z system. Alright, showing me these planes. So remember, if this is X, then the X plane is actually here. It's the one perpendicular. If I stand there and I look through this X, then I want to see the flat plane. Okay, don't want to be on this. The Y would be the bottom. Okay, that can be whatever, but it's this plane to work on. And if I want to work in the Z, on the Z plane, the Z plane will be perpendicular to this, and it will be this plane. Okay, and this can be, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so you can see how easily it is to stay in control by knowing that, okay, I want to work on the X plane, so I know it's looking through here, it's going to be this one. Z is this one, this big one here, and Y is the one at the bottom. Okay, while it's looking down. Okay, and now you can be confident to set up the basic shots and say, listen, I want the top view, so I'm going to look down there and I'm going to see, I'm still going to see my axes, but I know that I'll only be able to see the top of anything that I created. Alright, so what I've done is I went, and this is just something quick that I want to show you guys, is I designed this as a way to practice icon design and a little bit of architecture, architecture in the sense of design architecture, and yeah, and just went through all the things that you can do with the fundamentals of drawing. Okay, and where do you start? So this is a mock-up of what you basically will find on a 3D modeling program. So I've got my perspective view. So basically this is the XYZ system already set up. Alright, so I've got my XYZ system there, and then what I also have is looking on those axes. Alright, so here I've got the top view, and you can see this is my Y. So looking down at Y, I will see the top view. Okay, so this is the icon that will illustrate that. So if I look down on Y, I will see the Y plane. If I look along the Z plane, I will see the Z plane, and this is my front, I think, and the X will be the side looking from here. Okay, so this corresponds with the box and the sides. Okay, same translations. You can move in the opposite direction, so I can move in positive X. So I can, let's say I want to move this face in the positive X direction, so I'm going to move this here. Okay, but it needs to move in perspective with the correct calculations and all those. Let's say I want to move in the positive Y. Okay, so this is basically moving up and down in the Y, negative going down. Okay, so as I do this, it's positive, and this is back into the negative direction. Alright, and then the rotation is then around the axes, so I can actually flip this box around. Okay, so this is just a 2D setup, so I can't actually do this yet. Yeah, I created the icons for the top view, so you can see the 2D perspective gives me all three sides. Alright, the 2 point. Okay, this it gives me, I can see all three planes, okay, at one time. If I just look through the, again, this is just a repeat, if I look through the Y again, this is how it looks. Okay, so Y is then here, and I look through and I can still see the X and the Z, so I can the axes I can see. So this is for movement, so I can move either left, right, or up and down, but I will only see the top view. Okay, top and bottom. Okay, same with the Z. If I look along the Z axis, I will only see the Z plane. Alright, and this is my front view, and then the same X side. So here you can see that basically this thing rotates the whole time. So think of this actually as moving. Alright, this is a silly brush. Alright, so if this Z moves over to this side and I'm looking down this, then this is what you will see. Yeah, and the basic, okay, so yes, top view, front view, and then the side view. And by having all these views, I can actually design and see the effects from all the sides. Alright, so let's say I want to take the front of this box, okay, which is the Z, so I can just see Z and I know that this side is the front. And let's say I take the side, which is X, so it's this one, and also the top. Let's say I want to extend these edges up. So what actually happened here was the front plane and the Z plane moved up. Okay, so this is not how it works in perspective, but I just want to show you that if I change something here, it will change there. And in top view, I won't be able to see this because this came up, so this is into our direction, so it's into the Y. So on the Y axis, it went up. Alright. So it can be confusing, but it can be so helpful and so yeah, it's a powerful tool if you actually know how this works. And especially if you go to that second part where you take this out and you use this as a pivot point, or a pivot thing. So I can place that center pivot here, alright, and then you can start moving around these axes or manipulating the box and thinking about rotations and all those things. Alright. Yeah. So Let me just tell you what's going on here also. A little bit just extra information. This is basically, if you think of a 3D program, you are able to do certain types of things, okay, like create a box, and then you can start um, manipulating this box. And what I've done here is I've just designed a little interface just to show to me what the systematical process is um, that's needed to get to basically this stage here, like a 3D box created on this grid, right? And what does this mean? Okay, and if you look at the at fundamentals, what do I need? What skills do I need, or what order of skills do I need to actually create this type of thing? Because in a 3D program, it's easy. You go to create new primitive cube, you press it, and there it is. And suddenly you have all these selection tools where you can select edges, vertices, and faces, and you can start manipulating and all those nice things. Okay, but with pen and paper, it's a different thing. All right, so what we want to do is, and it's not a different thing. It's just a little bit more manual and labor intensive, but everything is possible. So at the side here, I just came up with a basic thing as if I'm going to take a new paper and then start. So the first thing I want to think about is 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, a top, a front, or a side. All right. So this thing here is basically has to do with the grid and the camera position. All right. So this is these four things here. It's the perspective view. All right. So is it a 1-point perspective, 2-point, or 3-point? Okay. So this is basically a 1-point perspective. Okay, so this is not the top or front or side view. This is a perspective view because it's I can see more sides. This is orthographic views. Okay, so this is basically the first skill that you have to know is you have to know the rules of perspective. And how does this work? What's the difference between the orthographic view and the perspective view, right? So if I have my grid set up, so let's say I've got a 2-point perspective going here. Let me show you guys. Okay, so I'm going to check that box. Alright, so I've got a 2-point perspective. The camera lens and field of view and stuff is basically you choose the grid and the camera position. This is actually, to me, this is the orientation, and then you choose the lens, and this gives us the vanishing points. It will set the vanishing points for you so that you can see what type of lens you use. Okay, so the vanishing points, what is it, a narrow shot, a long shot, or a wide angle lens, those type of things. So this is also that I dimmed this out because I still want to make a video about this. All right, so let's just choose 50. It's a human eye. All right, and then the second thing that you can do is you've set up the grids and the views. All right, so let's say this is the top, this is the front, this is the side, and this is I haven't created the box or the shape yet, but I already know that this is a 2-point perspective. So there's going to be a horizon line and 2 vanishing points, and yeah, perhaps a third one, but that's about that. And then what you can do is now you have to use, now you need to know the rules to use this grid to actually create one of these or these primitives on it to start building. And I think the plane is the most simple and the most important one actually. Okay, so the others are quite important as well, but the plane, especially if you think of fundamentals, is you can actually go down here and you go to the manipulation tools where we start to take a plane and we subdivide like a rectangle, and that's a plane. All right, and you can duplicate the plane or the rectangle and multiply and mirror. And essentially what a cube is actually planes put together. Okay, so if you're able to start by just putting planes on these grids, you're actually you're halfway there. All right, so by, let's say in this case I actually designed a cube. So This is what I went through in my mind. This is the skill that I need. I need to know, okay, how to create a primitive, how to create something on this grid. The next thing I want to do is I want to look at my selection options. Am I able to select edges, all right, and move them? Okay, so this is again, you're going to have to know perspective, how to move things, and vertices, the points. Okay, am I able to move them around and find them? Like for instance, crossing this rectangle and finding a center point. Okay, that's a vertice. Faces. Am I able to select this face and know that this is a face and move it in the x direction, right, or in the on the x axis? Okay, this is a skill that you need to know. And then navigation options. Okay, so you can move. All right, can you move in 3D space? Can you extend the vanishing points and move in the same line, parallel, keep the same size object? Can you rotate? Okay, the rotation thing we talked about, it's around the axis. If you understand this, then you will be able to actually start rotating around. And especially if you think in top view, in front view, and side view, you're able to put a pivot on here, okay, and then just start. Let's say the pivot is in the center, and you can start imagining this rotation type of thing going. Okay, so this is for navigation. And then scale. All right, so if you know a basic subdivision trick and you are able to do a plane on one of these grids, you are able to scale. So I can easily scale this up, all right, in a controlled manner. For instance, let's scale this. I'm going to cross out these sides. Well, not cross out, I'm going to draw a line through them. And this is basic divisions of the. I'm just going to flip this. I just want to quickly show you how to scale an object. Alright, and then what you do is you choose where you want to scale this. Let's do this with the line. So I want to take this block and I want to make it this big, and the only thing you do, oops, let's take the pen tool, is I'm going to connect lines all around here, and there you have it. I just scaled, and I can actually scale up and down, and you will see it moves on these, on those new lines that I draw, those divisions. Alright, so that's a skill that you have. You can actually do this, because if I can do it in top view, I can most certainly do it in all these views. Alright. And then this XYZ system, just having like a basic understanding of how this works and how to look through the axis, and especially know that there's a difference between axes and the planes. And then at the end, oh well, not at the end, so far it's the manipulation tools. Okay, now that you have your box, you have created this. Let's just go back to Photoshop quickly. I can draw a little bit better in Photoshop. Okay, so now that you have your box, or you've got the ability to actually design a box on a grid. So this is a 2-point perspective grid. Okay, a roughly one, just done with the eye. Now you want to start to manipulate this. So you want to start duplicate. You want to use this box, and you want to be able to duplicate. Alright, you want to be able to make those selections, take this vertex, and know, okay, if I move that point to here, alright, this follows rules, and I do the connections, that if this line stays connected, I'm going to have to actually do all these connections, okay? But now I'm starting to make a new shape. So let's take that point up, alright? This is still connected to that. So this is just going to be the new outline of my shape. just going to put that in to see the planes. Alright, and let's say I want to take this face and I want to move it into, okay, so I had to just define one of these axes, but let's say I'm going to call this X, Y, Z, and I want to move this Y of X, okay, Z is now on top. I'm going to move this Y plane, okay, because looking through that, this is the plane. I'm going to move this in this direction, alright, so extend those lines, move it up, and get my new outline. Okay, so this point was connected to there, so now this will connect to there. Alright, so now I'm starting to manipulate design, and you can do mirror and offset and all those type of things. Okay, and this is perspective drawing, and this is where we want to get to. Alright, okay guys, so I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys got something out of this. It's just a way to think about this navigation system and how to use this to actually take your designs and design thinking to the next level. So this is going to take a little bit. You have to play around with this, and you have to actually use this a bit and make mistakes and all those things, like practice and exercise. And the more you will do it and the more you use it, the more the better you will become, and you will see actually how helpful this is. Alright, okay, have a nice evening, and see you guys in a next video. Alright, cheers.